Hello everyone, Kevin Hunter here, the Homework Guy. I have a special guest in studio with me today, somebody who's actually from our hometown here in Williston. And out of the 16 years that I've been doing this, Mike, working with car buyers all around the country, this is the first time I've seen a deal like yours. And Mike nicely brought along a whole folder full of information that we had in communications back and forth with this dealership. So get started a little bit explaining what went through your process of making a connection with this dealer and purchasing this vehicle.
Well, back in early April, my son was helping me kind of look for a SUV, and he spotted it on Marketplace and talked with the dealership and put me in connection with the dealership. And on my way back from Nebraska on vacation in April, I stopped at the dealership in South Dakota and looked at it and
decided to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, a lot of people get their car buying journey started by somebody else, in Mike's case, his son, who found a vehicle and that sort of thing. So one of the first things that I noticed about this vehicle is that the dealer sold it to you for $30,000.
Correct.
And Liz and I booked it out here with Black Book, and we were appalled when we saw the actual book value of the vehicle, $19,500. Overspent $10,500 on the vehicle. So when you first contacted me, you started talking about all the various problems this car was having. What kind of issues did you experience? You couldn't even get home without putting a new set of tires on this vehicle, right?
No, that's correct. Yeah, I had to put a whole new set on.
And what exactly was the problem with the tires? Were there like the metal cords showing through?
Yeah, the rear tires, the cords were showing through, and on an all-wheel drive, you have to change all four. You can't just do the rear two.
You need a whole set of tires when you need new tires. Yeah, so the dealer had this vehicle sitting on their lot with the metal cords showing out of the tires. And then you get home and you discover that there's all kinds of rust on the frame of the vehicle underneath.
Yep, that is correct.
And a number of other issues. So part of the reason that you miss these details when you first looked at the vehicle is your eyesight isn't super great.
Correct. Yeah, and plus it had stormed the night before, and that particular morning when I was looking at the vehicle, it was sunny and bright, and the vehicle was dirty, so I did not pick up on any of that. I did not pick up on the tires. Yeah,
well, some people wouldn't, and because they're kind of hidden inside the wheel well a little bit, you know, and in the shadow in a bright sunny day, you know, it could definitely be missed. So you drove the vehicle home, and then you also discovered some other problems with it. Wheel bearings were bad in the back of the vehicle.
Correct. Yeah, the wheel bearings are rusted, so they're failing. And then the air conditioner line had been cut and plugged, so there was no air conditioning to the rear of the vehicle. And the exhaust system was rusting out, starting to leak. You could see all the moisture around, once it was up on the lift.
So Mike shared all these details with me of all the things that were wrong with this car. And all of a sudden, the silver bullet jumped out at me after we started talking about the deal. And you mentioned to me that the dealer had mailed you the title signed on the backside. In
Correct.
16 years, Mike, that's the first time I've ever seen that. Never, ever seen a dealer not transfer a title and just send it to you and say that was your job. Well, this vehicle was purchased in the state of South Dakota, and South Dakota codified law makes it really clear that dealership has responsibility of transferring the title within 45 days, or the customer can rescind the car deal. So if you remember in the beginning, I said Mike paid more than $10,000 too much for this vehicle. And so obviously if you could rescind it, that's exactly what you wanted to do.
Correct.
Yeah, so I have a letter here, and we'll block out the personal information, but we'll show it on the back screen here. We had a letter that we wrote for Mike to this dealership and made all kinds of specific demands in there, including payment for a lot of expenses of the tires, stuff like that, and then quoted the various law that was violated by this transaction, by this dealer. And you had kind of a funny experience with, so a title clerk called you at some point and told you it was your job to transfer the title, right?
Correct. Yeah, I wanted to know why I hadn't done it yet. You know, plus prior to that, when they were getting ready to send it, I took a picture of the DMV business card here in town,
Right.
so that they could send it directly there. They chose not to, and they sent it to me, which I'm glad they did that.
Yes. Yes. So here, dealers in violation of South Dakota state law, and Mike's holding on to the title. And when I first discovered that he had the title in his hand, I was like, you keep that sucker, because as of right now, you're the one who controls the time frame. So we waited until 45 days exactly so that the dealer was clearly out of compliance with the state law, and then sent him this letter and informed the dealer that Mike was going to rescind the car deal. And the cool thing about this deal, Mike, was that from beginning to end, with our help, of course, in writing these letters for you to this dealership, you were in control of what the outcome of this deal and getting it rescinded. You were in control of that the entire process.
Yes, and they just said, well, you signed the paperwork, it's yours,
Yeah.
and they weren't willing to do nothing except for assist with the tires.
Yeah. So the dealer did everything they could to squirm out of this initially until they got the letter, and then when the letter clearly spelled out the law and their violation of the law, I think the dealer had a clue at that point. Somebody else was involved in Mike's corner, and that was us. Part of the reason I want to share this story with people in our viewing audience is that when a dealer violates whether a state law or federal law in the course of your car deal, and especially if it's a bad car deal and you want to get out of it, we have, Mike, besides yours, we've had 3 other car deals that we have helped customers get rescinded. And in every time, court wasn't involved and we didn't have to get a dealer involved. And I guess it kind of helps, that I have this big announcer kind of voice, but when I had conversation with one of these dealers directly, it was really, really clear that he was totally intimidated by the conversation. And after the customer left the dealership, he calls me up and goes, Kevin, you the man. He goes, you had them shaking in their boots. And I think, Mike, with some of these letters that you sent off to this dealership, part of the reason that they complied, they actually sent a transport up to come get the vehicle from you.
Yes.
And then they didn't send Mike a copy of the check before they claimed they were going to pay this off with the dealership, or with the credit union, rather. He had reason to suspect that maybe they weren't following through and doing their part. But you did have a phone conversation with the credit union out of Colorado and found out that the car was, in fact, paid off.
Correct.
So the dealer paid off your car loan, the bloated car loan, and then because you had traded in a vehicle at the time, and they had bid this vehicle at $8,000, which I shared with you was more money than the car was actually worth. But they wrote Mike a check for $8,000 or just over $8,000 and settled the deal.
Yep.
So what are some of your takeaways here, Mike, that you'd like to share with our viewing audience?
Well, I guess the biggest learning lesson for me is I need to do a better inspection, and if I can't see it, I need to ask somebody else to look at it. And that's, I guess, where I failed, because I put my trust to the salesman thinking that he would do right by me, and I guess, I know now that that's not the case.
Yes. All right, so you have gotten a full refund of your vehicle. It's paid off at the bank, and you got $8,000. So that was most of what you had put into this vehicle. And then the other thing that happened after the dealership paid off that credit union, you had mailed them a second car payment, and the credit union, have they returned that payment as of now?
Yes, I just received that today. So
Awesome. So you got his car payment back too. So beautiful. Well, there was a happy ending in this story, but it easily could have been very bad. It was a good thing that the dealer slipped up and violated a significant South Dakota state law, and that state law was the undoing of this car deal. And in any car deal that you guys have out there in our viewing audience, potentially there's a state law or a federal law that the dealer violated in the course of doing business with you two, and those things can definitely rescind a car deal. We've done 4 out of 4 car deals just like that in the recent month. Mike, first of all, thank you very much for joining us here on the broadcast and kind of sharing a little bit of your car story. And it was a pleasure to work with you through this whole process.
thank you for your assistance. It was a pleasure to work with you also.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Kevin Hunter here, the homework guy, signing off on behalf of our auto expert, Alex Stevens, and the amazing Elizabeth, who joins me regularly here on the show. But being that Mike was sitting in with me here today, she stepped out and Mike stepped in. So that's how that kind of happened. All right, everybody. Until next time, take care. You guys rock. Thanks for watching.